All right, we are back and we are going to continue reading on just a little bit more, talking about Kennedy and Trump, the book. This is episode number 3. Thank you all again for joining. Hope the stream isn't too bad. Looks like there is some type of a lag, but we're going to make this work. All right, let's get right into it here. What I need to do is, I'll go back till I can share the screen, and then we will get going. We are now covering, make sure this is showing. Oh, it sure is. Look at that. All right. What makes Kennedy so special? Pretty good question here. Got my notes just in case I need to add any edits. And we are ready to go, I believe. Sure looks like it. All right. I believe we are ready. All right, let's continue on. What makes Kennedy so special? As early as July 2023, Trump understood how popular a candidate RFK Jr. was. A lot of Democrats I know want to vote for him, said Trump. Early in the campaign season, Trump's answers were very short when asked about RFK Jr. I like him, President Trump said in September 2023. I've known him a long time. I've really known him. I've always gotten along with him pretty well. The Democrat darling media were quick to label Kennedy as the Republicans' favorite Democrat. Painting Kennedy and Trump as threats to Joe Biden's America backfired on the media in the summer of 2023. Loyal Democrats not thrilled with Joe Biden now had another choice for their 2024 presidential nominee. On August 13, 2023, NBC News correspondent Ali Vitali asked Kennedy how he felt about being labeled as a favorite within the Republican Party. I started out this campaign saying that I wanted to end the toxic polarization that is dividing America. That is dividing America. That, I think, is as dangerous as any time since the American Civil War, said Kennedy. A lot of people agree with that. A lot of Americans agree with that. They talk about the future in apocalyptical terms. I feel like somebody needs to stand up and stop talking so much, focusing so much on issues that divide us, and talk instead about the values that bring us together. President Trump was impressed with RFK Jr.'s poll numbers at that time. Kennedy was polling at around 22% against Joe Biden in the summer of 2023. That's a lot for somebody that came in with absolutely no chance of winning, Trump said during an interview with Eric Bolling on Newsmax. Trump's comments show how he feels about RFK Jr. when he said, "A lot of people respect him. He's got some very important points to be made. He's a respected person." Kennedy's momentum was so strong in the summer of 2023 that the left-leaning media focused on the polls where Kennedy was around 10% to 15%. The few right-leaning media platforms that talked about Kennedy's poll numbers placed him at around 18%, sometimes 20%. I like President Trump's calculations better, of course. He's doing really well at the polls, said Trump. He's at 22%. That's pretty good. Trump hadn't talked to Kennedy recently, according to his interview with radio talk show host Hugh Hewitt in the summer of 2023. I would, but I haven't, said Trump. Trump saw how the mainstream media and Democrat Party elites were attacking Kennedy and offered some encouraging words to his political opponent. Just hang in there. Both Kennedy and Trump were guests on Full Measure with Sharyl Attkisson within a few weeks of each other. Attkisson interviewed President Trump on September 24, 2023. Trump had some kind words for Kennedy after the host mentioned the latest Rasmussen poll. The poll concluded 1 in 3 Democrats said they might vote for Robert F. Kennedy if he were to leave the Democrat Party and run as an independent. Trump said he liked Kennedy and left the door open for future collaborations with him. Attkisson mentioned Trump's statement when she interviewed Kennedy a few weeks later. RFK responded, "I think that's very nice of President Trump to say that." The host then laughed before asking, "Could you see yourself working in any capacity with Donald Trump?" "That's not a job that I would look for. If I'm not able to run things, I would not want to be in government at all." Seeds of unity. In the beginning of the 2024 presidential primary race, it was rare to hear Trump talk about Kennedy at all. Trump's focus was on his Republican rivals and Joe Biden. Trump didn't hold back against the Republican Party presidential candidates running against him. It was political suicide for some and marching orders for others. Yet, when asked about RFK Jr., Trump usually kept his answers short, somewhat evasive, but always kind. Kennedy said many flattering things about Trump, and Trump often returned the favor. There was something special about their relationship, something worth documenting for historical purposes. Hint, hint. While chatting with radio talk show host Hugh Hewitt, Trump called Kennedy a common sense guy. "So am I," Trump added. "Whether you're a conservative or liberal, common sense is common sense. And a lot of what I run on is common sense." To stop right there, I see an extra. Oh, what page is this? Going by the page numbers, this will be page 19. Probably going to take out this quotation for the common sense guy. Page 19. Common sense. Remove quotation. Pretty hesitant on my part. All right. Kennedy appreciated Trump's kind words. "I'm proud that President Trump likes me," said Kennedy, "even though I don't agree with him on most of his issues, because I don't want to alienate people. I want to bring people together. I'm proud that all these people like me and that I have independent supporters and Democratic supporters." During a Fox and Friends interview, Kennedy explained the importance of Biden debating fellow Democrat Party presidential candidates. "Ultimately, the president is going to have to debate a Republican," said Kennedy, and the Republican likely is going to be Trump. "Trump is probably the most successful debater in this country since Lincoln Douglas in the way that he dispatched 16 Republican opponents, one after the other in 2016, was really quite extraordinary. He has his own technique that people like." Trump was honored that Kennedy recognized his debating skills. Kennedy said that Biden better practice up with the debates. "He was very complimentary about my debating skills. I was very honored by the fact that he said that. I'm glad he feels that way." Just reading some of this, just to stop for just a second, I really hope that people can grasp, or that it's, I know it goes back and forth with Kennedy says this, Trump says that, and I hope that makes sense. I hope people can understand who is saying what. Are all the quotations making sense? I didn't want every single time Kennedy said, Trump said, Kennedy said, Trump. So I hope that there's enough in there that you can really follow along with who is saying what. And it does flip back and forth, just like the clipumentary that I made. It does flip back and forth, and that is on purpose, because I want to kind of show it in a documentary style of Kennedy said this, Trump said that, Kennedy said this, Trump said that, and it goes back and forth. But I didn't want to overdo the Kennedy said, Trump said, blah, blah, blah. So I hope that makes sense. Reading it myself, I'm like, I hope people get that, and that it's not too much of, well, who was saying that? Was Kennedy saying that, or was Trump saying that? I hope all of that makes a lot of sense. We'll see. According to Kennedy, asking the president not to debate during the primary is like asking a prize fighter to practice for his big bout by sitting on a couch and eating Chick-fil-A. "I don't know if he's right or wrong," Trump admitted, "but he gave me a lot of good compliments. We'll see what happens with him. He's got a hard time going with the Democrats because they're making it so that if he gets votes, they're not even going to count them. I've never seen anything like that one." When Trump was asked about a possible debate between Biden and Kennedy, he predicted correctly it would not happen. "I just don't think that they'll allow Biden to debate anybody," said Trump. "You could put up a child. I don't think they'll allow him to debate. They're not going to allow it to happen." President Trump called Kennedy a very smart guy and a good guy. His heart is in the right place. Trump explained why Biden wouldn't debate anyone within his own party. I truly understand why he doesn't want to do it. I don't think he's capable of doing it. Why would he do it? If he's got 30 or 40 point lead, which is what he's got. In the case of RFK, Trump continued, I've seen polls where he's at 20%. That's not bad. Even so, said President Trump, I don't think RFK expects that he's going to be debating. He's a very smart guy, by the way. I don't think he expects to be debating Biden. President Trump's prediction was right. Eventually, RFK Jr. would part ways with the Democrat Party and run as an independent presidential candidate. But back in 2023, there were many examples of Kennedy and Trump speaking positively about each other. Even when there were disagreements, it was generally done in a respectful way. How Kennedy and Trump talk about each other should be the standard, not only in politics, but in the way we talk about each other in our daily lives. This is something I have learned from both candidates. When Kennedy was asked to comment on Trump's personality, his response was perfect. Here's what I'm not going to do in this race, said Kennedy. I'm not going to attack other people personally. I don't think it is good for our country. What I'm trying to do in this race is bring people together, is to try to bridge the divide between Americans. President Trump understood the challenge Kennedy faced against the Democrat Party power structure. During an interview with Megyn Kelly, President Trump explained, it's very hard to take on the Democrat Party. Look at RFK Jr. They're not even giving him the vote. They're saying you have to get a vast number of votes in order to even qualify. They're making it impossible for him. They're making it impossible for him. They're essentially rigging the election, which they're very good at. We should not be surprised by the similarities between Kennedy and Trump. Many of their proposed policies would make America great again. Their possible collaboration would be a big threat to the globalist agenda. President Trump left the door open for future collaborations with the nephew of the 35th President of the United States. I could see having something to do with him in the future. With him into the future? There it is again. All right, change that. What page is this? Where did I go on that? I guess someone would have into the future. I have to go back and see if Trump actually said into the future. But more than likely, that should be in the future. So, page 21. Change into the future to the future, if that's correct. Sometimes, you're like, oh, did he really say it like this? And sometimes it's right, sometimes it's wrong. So we'll see. Into the future, back to the future. Before we think about the future, let's take a moment to look at the past, specifically when President Trump asked RFK Jr. to take part in his Vaccine Safety Commission. In 2016, said Kennedy, President Trump asked me to serve on a Vaccine Safety Commission, which I agreed to do. But shortly after that, he took $1 million from Pfizer and I guess talked to Bill Gates, at least that's what Bill Gates claims, and shut down the commission. And he appointed Scott Gottlieb to run the FDA, who was a partner at Pfizer, and Alex Azar, who was a handpicked lobbyist, essentially, for Pfizer to run HHS. And then Gottlieb ran this $88 billion product through Operation Warp Speed, got it all approved at the FDA, and then left the agency and went back to join the board of Pfizer. So I don't think that Donald Trump did a good job at draining the swamp. I criticize his policies. I truly believe President Trump has done a great job uniting the country, and I think Kennedy can expand on that accomplishment. They're the dream team for us dreamers. They have united evil forces in ways that expose corrupt agendas. Kennedy exposes them from the left, and Trump attacks them from the right. The enemy is forced to split up its resources to attack both men, but this tactic only further exposes their true agenda against the United States of America. Very powerful forces are trying to instigate a civil war in this country. That is the only way this great nation can be taken down, from within. The invasion at the border is a big part of this plan. Separating Americans, keeping us divided and at each other's throats, is a key aspect to complete their mission. This is why it's so important that we Americans practice the lost art of agreeing to disagree. Kennedy said it best. We need to figure out a way to start talking to each other and to start healing each other and just stop hating on each other. This polarization is more dangerous than it's been in this country since the Civil War. And we need to figure out ways to start talking to Americans with whom we disagree with. I will talk to anybody, Kennedy said after an early campaign speech. I'm happy to talk to Donald Trump or Joe Biden. I don't attack either of them personally. I talk about their issues critically. Kennedy was also asked about the super PAC support from Roger Stone and Steve Bannon. Kennedy quickly reminded the interviewer that Stone and Bannon are part of one of many super PACs supporting his campaign. Like many Americans, Kennedy agrees Trump has been treated unfairly by the media, his political opponents and various intelligence agencies, and biased government officials. I think he's criticized for a lot of things he didn't do. The case against Trump in New York seemed politically motivated. Regarding Trump's case involving the Espionage Act, Kennedy had a clear bias. I don't like the Espionage Act. I think it's always been politically misused. President Trump also has these top secret documents, and Mike Pence has them too. So it looks like one side is being prosecuted more than the other. I commend him for talking about unraveling the empire and his efforts to do that, to keep us out of war, Kennedy said about President Trump. But in terms of the lockdowns, I think that was a huge mistake for our country. And I think that the medical decisions that occurred under his watch were a bad mistake, and I criticize those. But I don't criticize him personally, and I try not to criticize Biden personally too. I think we've had enough of that in our country, and we have to learn how to talk to people with whom we disagree and to be pleasant to them, to be congenial, respectful, and kind. During the June 26, 2023 Sky News interview, RFK Jr. was asked about finding himself on the same page as President Trump. Kennedy believes Trump intended to drain the swamp but was unsuccessful. Kennedy rightfully stated, I appealed to many of the people that support Donald Trump. Donald Trump has many, many supporters who voted twice for Obama. These aren't people who are sort of committed to right-wing ideology. These are Americans, and they're Americans who mainly feel an absolute sense of desperation, and they feel that nobody in the government is listening to them. And the truth is that the government isn't listening to them. The border wall. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have done nothing to secure our borders. An estimated 10 million illegal aliens have entered the United States in the since. Oh, there's another one. I need to take out the in the right here. Page is this. This is page 23. Okay, take out in the. Page 23. Take out in the. In the beginning. Audio's okay. Okay, audio seems to be. I just like check the audio every now and then. Sometimes when I bump my microphone, it turns on the other bad mic that I do not like. That squeaking that's my chair. If you hear that, that's just my chair. Just in case. Okay, I'll reread that sentence properly, acting like I've already edited. An estimated 10 million illegal aliens have entered the United States since the rigged 2020 presidential election. Biden and Harris blamed the border crisis on President Trump, but that is another lie the two corrupt politicians have told in the past 4 years. If Trump can close the border with congressional approval, if Trump can close the border without congressional approval, that's what it should say. It should say without congressional approval. All right, let's read that again. If Trump can close the border without congressional approval, so could Biden. It seems clear Biden and Harris want to flood our country with illegals. Kennedy and Trump both favor a strong and secure border. We need to close the border until we can get a handle on the illegals and the missing children who have disappeared inside America. A nation without borders, should be, I think it's still page 23 too. I was really rushing on that one. See, this should be a nation without borders. All right. Is not a nation without borders is not a nation at all. What we are witnessing inside the United States is an invasion of our country. The New World Order to destroy the great nation on God's green earth. Something missing there. The New World Order should be plans, I guess. The New World Order had plans to destroy the greatest nation on God's green earth. The New World Order plans to destroy the greatest nation on God's green earth, the United States of America. God bless America. No country can survive it if it can't control its borders, said Kennedy, and we're not doing that. We had the safest border in the history of our country, said Trump, and now we have the worst border, probably anywhere in the world, including third world countries. During his first trip to the southern border, Border Patrol agents explained to Kennedy how easily illegal immigration could be stopped. What the Border Patrol and everybody else said is you don't need a physical barrier from San Diego, 2,200 miles, to Brownsville, Texas, said Kennedy. You do need a physical barrier in certain places where there's high dense populations. The rest of it you can monitor with very sophisticated surveillance and ground monitoring systems. Many of those were put up during the Trump administration. But for some reason, the Biden administration, when it came in, took down the towers and they removed the ground sensing systems. This is not something that as a Democrat that I want to hear. Once it got out that this is an open border, the cartels saw that there's a profit opportunity here. The flow has just increased exponentially. Once back in office, President Trump promised to impose a full naval embargo on the drug cartels and deploy military assets to inflict maximum damage on cartel operations. I will insist on the full cooperation of neighboring governments to dismantle the trafficking and smuggling networks in our region, and I will ask Congress to ensure that drug dealers, kingpins, and human traffickers receive the death penalty. The cartels are now running U.S. immigration policy, said Kennedy, and everybody knows that. Trump also vowed to direct federal law enforcement here in the United States to take down the gangs and organized street crime that distribute these deadly narcotics on a local level. They are killing our people. They are poisoning our beautiful children. I will permanently designate fentanyl as a federally controlled substance. For 3 decades before my election, drug overdose deaths increased every single year. Under my leadership, we took the drug and fentanyl crisis head on, and we achieved the first reduction in overdose deaths in more than 30 years. So much for the Project Dare to keep the kids off drugs, right? Kennedy's vice presidential candidate understood the crisis we face at the southern border. This is a human trafficking crisis impacting the lives of millions, Nicole Shanahan wrote on Twitter. I learned today people are flying into Mexico from all over the world to be escorted, often by cartels, to our border gaps. Kennedy remains optimistic that the border control issue can be fixed. In fact, Kennedy recognizes the border was secure under the leadership of President Trump. Kennedy did not like Trump's wall in the beginning, but after visiting the border in Yuma, he changed his mind. He understood that the problem at the border could be stopped. The way to stop it is very, very simple, said Kennedy, and they've been doing it before. Now, I didn't like to hear this because I'm not a big fan of Donald Trump. Speaking of the border crisis, RFK Jr. learned that as of June 2023, 9 Border Patrol agents committed suicide in the last year because they're so demoralized about what's happening. During the News Nation town hall, Kennedy was asked if he would rebuild Trump's wall. A lot of it now has been rebuilt, replied Kennedy, but it's not so much the wall. It's the other censoring devices that were all ripped up. I'm very embarrassed to say by this administration, by the Democratic administration. Also, the policies were changed so that the presumption is everyone gets in, and I witnessed it myself, and we can't have that. Kennedy is Trump's vice president? Then came the big question that was floating around since Kennedy announced his plan to run for president of the United States. Would he like to run on a ticket with Donald Trump? No, I'm not going to run with President Trump, Kennedy said plainly, but I'm flattered by the offer. Another time, Kennedy said he was approached by people from the Trump team. He even joked about his marriage when asked if he was considering accepting the position of Trump's VP. I don't think my marriage would survive, said Kennedy. His wife, Cheryl Hines, agreed. I think he's right. Would Kennedy ever consider running as President Trump's vice president? It was a strange question, but perhaps a strategic one, meant to push potential Democrat voters away from the strongest Democrat within the party. If Biden operatives could smear Kennedy and associate his views with Donald Trump, then perhaps it would turn the average Democrat away from the nephew of one of the most popular presidents ever. This is the difference between a Kennedy Democrat and a Biden operative. Interviews like this eventually helped push Kennedy out of the party he loved. But in the summer of 2023, those were just seeds being watered in the swampy soil of the blue brand. Early in his campaign, Kennedy shot down rumors of running as a third-party candidate. I'm a Democrat, Kennedy said. I really feel like the Democratic Party has lost its way. If you look at all the issues that I stand for, you go through the issues that my father and my uncle stood for, I can go and check every one of those boxes. Kennedy was heavily criticized for daring to run against Joe Biden for the party nomination. During his town hall discussion with News Nation, Kennedy was asked if he would pledge his support to the Democratic Party nominee, no matter who it was. Of course I'm not going to do that, Kennedy responded. Blindly pledging support along party lines would contradict everything Kennedy stands for. If people are living up to the Democratic values and having debates and having discussions, talking to each other, that would be a great achievement for the political situation of this country today. Republican gubernatorial candidate for Arizona, Kari Lake, was also asked about the possibility of RFK Jr. becoming Trump's vice president. I've been hearing the fake news media attack Robert F. Kennedy Jr., calling him a MAGA Democrat. They just don't want outsiders in the political machine. They don't want outsiders coming into the swamp and draining the swamp, whether they be outsiders who are Democrats or outsiders who are Republicans. They want just the pre-approved, controllable, easily blackmailed, easily bribed people like Joe Biden and the whole swamp system down there. I think Robert F. Kennedy has done amazing things. His book is incredible, exposing Dr. Fauci and the fraud that he is. I think he's an incredible man. I do believe that President Trump most likely respects RFK Jr. and vice versa. Former Trump campaign advisor Steve Bannon once pondered, if Kari Lake is not President Trump's VP, if that's not the selection, he could do a lot better in a coalition ticket of Trump-Kennedy, right? After RFK Jr.'s speech in Des Moines, Iowa, he was asked about the chances of him becoming President Trump's vice president. I've been repeatedly asked whether I'd consider being Donald Trump's vice presidential pick, and I would not. He did not give a definitive answer when asked if he would consider being in a GOP presidential cabinet. I don't know. Mugshots. During an interview with Jesse Watters, RFK Jr. was asked about Trump's mugshot. It was an interesting and probably very shrewd decision for him to put on that defiant face, Kennedy responded. I think it's very popular with his base. Do you think the mugshot appeals to the Democrat base? Jesse Watters asked. I had a mugshot when I was arrested in Puerto Rico in 2001, Kennedy responded, when I was doing a protest against the Navy on a lawsuit that I eventually won that got the Navy out of the island. When you're arrested and you get a mugshot, you have a strategic decision about how you want to look. I wondered whether he practiced it in front of the mirror or whether he was just angry at the time and that reflected what he'd been. From a strategic point of view, it worked very well for him. Kennedy leaves the Democratic Party. I'm going to pause right there just for a second, catch my breath a little bit, and play a little bit of this here.
You're a lifelong Democrat, and yet so many Republicans are supporting you. And I'm sure when you gave that number about how much money you've gotten in campaign contributions, a lot of it is coming from Republicans. They're interested in you advancing to a debate with Joe Biden, which doesn't look like it's going to happen.
I mean, we're going to try to get the president debate. We think it's really important. And it's important for I think the Democratic Party, because ultimately the president is going to have to debate a Republican, and the Republican likely, we don't know, but is going to be Trump. Trump is probably the most successful debater in this country since Lincoln Douglas. The way that he dispatched 16 Republican opponents, one after the other, in 2016 was really quite extraordinary. And he has his own technique that people like. And it's like going to a prize fight, and you need practice.
Sure.
And that usually happens during the primary. And asking, the president not to debate during the primary is like asking a prize fighter to practice for his big bout by sitting on a couch and eating Chick-fil-A.
It's interesting that you're saying that and praising him, because you normally don't hear that from a candidate who could potentially run against him. Are you learning? Did you learn through this campaign what your father taught you, what your uncle taught you, what Donald Trump has taught you?
Well, about what?
Just about how to run a campaign.
Well, I've got I have a very good staff at running this campaign. You met Dennis Kucinich, who is my campaign manager, and he's running 42 campaigns.
Former Fox News contributor.
He's nodding his head. Yes, he's doing a good job. Right on camera.
Pretty interesting question. Okay, we'll get back a little bit into this. Yeah. Have you learned from Donald Trump? It's like, about what? What are you talking about, lady? All right, enough of that. Kennedy leaves the Democrat Party. Democrat Party or Democratic Party? I always get those two kind of mixed up. When is it the Democratic Party? I think it should be the Democratic Party. Oh, well. Kennedy initially began his 2024 presidential campaign as a member of the Democrat Party, and his plan was to win the election. Kennedy never said his plan was to win the presidency under the DNC umbrella. My plan is to win this election, and I don't have a plan B. While Kennedy was still running as a Democrat in 2023, President Trump rightfully predicted if Kennedy left the Democrat Party and ran as an independent, Kennedy would be successful. Trump even defended Kennedy against the Democrat Party machine. I like him a lot. I've known him for a long time. He's very much a libertarian in a certain way, and I think I have certain qualities along those lines too, if you want to know the truth. I think they're really treating him badly. He's doing okay. He's not doing good. He's at 11%, 12% against Biden, which isn't so great, but it's okay. But they're treating him so badly, what they're making him go through. I don't know if he gets to the gate, because they're almost making it so that he's not going to be able to. They're not going to count his votes. They basically are unbelievable election cheaters. That's why they do better than anybody. That's about the only thing they do well, but they're giving him a hard time. So we'll see. If he runs as an independent, I don't know. I think he'd do fine. A great prediction by President Trump, I would say there. It hurt my soul, hurt my heart, but Trump was right. Once again, before the 2024 presidential primary, Republican Congressman Andy Ogles was one of many who predicted Joe Biden would not be the Democratic Party presidential nominee. Ogles was asked if he thought Kennedy would be the party's nominee. Well, we'll see, the congressman answered. I think the vultures are circling, if you will. I think you see a lot of Democrats not saying anything to defend Biden, and I think that's an indicator that they're waiting for the next shoe to drop, and Biden will not be the nominee. Kennedy scheduled a special press conference on October 9, 2023 in Philadelphia. After years of hoping for a strong third-party candidate in this race, it looked like we would finally have one. Kennedy took the stage in front of thousands of people and announced he was leaving the Democratic Party. I'm here today to declare myself an independent candidate for the President of the United States. I haven't made this decision lightly, Kennedy continued. It's very painful for me to let go of the party of my uncles, my father, my grandfather, both of my great-grandfathers. Today, we turn a new page in American politics. There have been independent candidates in this country before, but this time it's going to be different because this time the independent is going to win. Trump attacks Kennedy. So now the gloves are coming off. And you always got to start off with the blowhard named Sean Hannity. You kick it right off there. On October 10th, 2023, Kennedy faced the wrath of Sean Hannity. In previous interviews, Hannity asked Kennedy about his views on various issues. But in this interview, Hannity began by attacking Kennedy. You're pretty liberal, Hannity told Kennedy. You've called for curbing logging, oil drilling, fracking. You want to eliminate it. You called it a victory for democracy. You want to curb U.S. fossil fuel extraction. Keep it in the ground, you once tweeted. You called the NRA once a terror group. You supported, over the years, Democrats, Gore, Kerry, Obama, Hillary. You praised Bernie Sanders multiple times. You support affirmative action. And why is this party of yours, why didn't they even want to allow you to compete? Because that's as pretty liberal of a record as anybody I know. Kennedy was not amused. He asked Hannity if he had a question. You have a litany of talking points from statements I've made over 40 years, Kennedy said to Hannity. Some of them are stale. Some of them I never said. But what is your question? Why did they kick you out? Asked Hannity. Then Hannity goes back to the litany of talking points criticizing Kennedy. Kennedy sits there quietly, allowing Hannity to feed into the propaganda. These are recent positions you've had, Hannity continued. I'm not sure why the Democratic Party wouldn't allow you to compete. Kennedy interrupted Hannity and asked, do you want to talk about my position, Sean? Or do you want to read talking points from the Trump campaign? Well, excuse me, said Hannity. These are not talking points. These are called Hannity points. I do my own research. But I saw the same list published this morning by the Trump campaign, Kennedy responded. It's the exact same list. And again, if you want to know what my position is on any issue, I'm happy to talk. If you want to know what my position is on any issue, I'm happy to talk to you about it. Ooh, this is boiling my blood just rereading this part. Hannity called Kennedy a liberal who is historically left of center. Hannity then asked Kennedy to explain how he would convince any conservative that you have any conservative leanings, except for a couple of issues. I wouldn't describe myself at this point as part of the conservative ideology or the Democratic ideology, answered Kennedy. I would describe myself as part of the common sense ideology. President Trump joined in the attack, posting a clip of the heated exchange between Kennedy and Hannity with the caption, "So much for RFK Jr. being a Republican." The same day as Kennedy's appearance on Hannity tonight, the Trump campaign spokesman Stephen Chung warned potential voters to not be deceived by anyone who pretends to have conservative values. To be clear, Kennedy has never claimed to have conservative values, as Mr. Chung suggests. Conservatives may like Kennedy, but they should understand that he does not limit himself to such labels as conservative or liberal. That doesn't stop the campaign spokesperson from making false statements about Kennedy. The fact is that RFK has a disturbing background steeped in radical, liberal positions, Chung continued. Using words like radical and liberal when describing Kennedy's position on critical issues shows how scared some are of the once Democratic presidential candidate. The Republican establishment, up until that point, had been mostly neutral about RFK Jr., but something changed when Kennedy announced his independent candidacy. Chung also claimed an RFK candidacy is nothing more than a vanity project for a liberal Kennedy looking to cash in on his family name. What a disgusting thing to say about a man who President Trump often calls a common sense guy. On October 9th, 2023, the Republican National Committee made an official statement on RFK Jr.'s decision to run as an independent in the 2024 presidential election. Make no mistake, wrote RNC Chairman Ronna McDaniel, a Democrat in independent's clothing is still a Democrat. RFK Jr. cannot hide from his record of endorsing Hillary, supporting the Green New Deal, fighting against the Keystone Pipeline, and praising AOC's tax hikes. He is your typical elitist liberal, and voters won't be fooled. American families deserve common sense leadership that will return America's energy independence, stop Bidenflation, secure our border, and get our country back on track, which is why our Republican nominee will be the next president of the United States. Before I move on a little bit there, just want to say that it wasn't soon long after this that RNC chairman Ronna McDaniel was out as the RNC chairwoman, and replaced. Could be coincidence, could be nothing, but she was a do-nothing Republican and still is. And that statement seems a bit hypocritical. Her statement, not mine. Remember, it was the RNC who tried to force all Republican candidates to sign a pledge to vote for whoever wins their party's primary, or they would not be allowed to participate in any of the debates. To me, that sounds like an elitist move. Kennedy is not above admitting he's wrong. Will Ronna McDaniel ever admit it was a mistake to force their candidates to sign a pledge? Especially when it essentially meant President Trump wouldn't participate in the Republican debates. I doubt it. The RNC has done a lot, whether purposely or not, to keep President Trump off the ballot in 2024. That will not be forgotten. And it wasn't. And she was out and done. What a stupid thing to do, to make all of the Republican nominees make a pledge in order to participate in the debates. I almost forgot why she got the boot. Then there was Donald Trump Jr., who went after Kennedy. Ugh, this was bad. RFK is a radical liberal who happens to be anti-vax, said Trump Jr. That is a lie. Kennedy has never stated he is anti-vax. There are quotes as early as 2017 of Kennedy stating, "I am for vaccines." But those quotes often get ignored by the both. There we go. There's another edit. Have to remove the page 31. Okay, make a note. Page 31. Remove the, because this should say, where is it? Often get ignored by and then both. I'm just making a note of where to remove it. Okay. I am for vaccines, but those quotes often get ignored by both the blue and red brands when it fits their agenda. Trump Jr. made several other false accusations against Kennedy, stating Kennedy was for open borders his entire life. He's against farmers. He was a radical environmentalist. He was super anti-gun. Not just anti-gun, he's super anti-gun. He says he's changed his mind. He's changed his mind on everything that he did for decades. Everything magically 6 months ago. I don't believe that. Trump Jr. agreed that Kennedy is a phenomenal alternative to Joe Biden as a Democrat, but he is a radical Democrat. If Trump Jr. thinks Kennedy is a radical Democrat, I wonder what he thinks about Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, Gavin Newsom, and Maxine Waters. Those four politicians want nothing to do with Kennedy or his proposed policies. Trump Jr. ended his rant against Kennedy by stating it's all part of the machine to try to stop Trump, as far as I'm concerned. During a short video posted on Truth Social on April 11, 2024, President Trump called Kennedy the most radical left candidate in the race. He's more so than the Green Party. He's more so than even crooked Joe Biden. Once again, when Trump has something negative to say about Kennedy, he counters it with something positive, saying Kennedy has some nice things about him. I happen to like him. We heard a lot of chatter and debate about who Kennedy will hurt more in the general election, Trump or Biden. We were supposed to have the answer in November, but that was before Biden officially dropped out of the race. Kennedy believed he would take votes away from both candidates, and I agree. Still, I believe Kennedy will take away more votes from Biden. In April 2024, President Trump's view on the topic was clear. RFK Jr. is going to be taking away votes from crooked Joe Biden, and he should, because he's actually better than Biden. He's much better than Biden. All right. Even so, even though Trump called Kennedy the most radical left candidate in the race, that may not be a bad thing, especially when we consider what a radical left candidate should look like, which I believe is closer to President John F. Kennedy and Senator Robert F. Kennedy than it is to Joe Biden. Let's not forget that. According to President Trump, Senator Ted Kennedy once called Joe Biden the dumbest senator in office. Trump also admitted that if he were a Democrat, he would also vote for Kennedy. If I were a Democrat, I'd vote for RFK Jr. every single time over Biden because he's frankly more in line with the Democrats. Sounds like being a radical Democrat is not that bad of an option to President Trump. At least not as bad as being a fake Democrat like Joe Biden. It's great for MAGA, Trump said about RFK Jr. running for president. I hope he continues to run. But the communists will make it even hard on him to get on the ballot, as they did for him as a Democrat. He wanted to get on the ballot. They made it very, very difficult for him. They really went after him viciously, just like they go after me. Welcome to the crowd, RFK Jr. Trump called the Democrats vicious communists, fascists. They're horrible people. They really hurt him badly, what they did to him as a Democrat. That's why he's running as an independent. Trump warned Kennedy they may try to indict him too, but expect him to be indicted any day now, probably for environmental fraud. He is crooked Joe Biden's political opponent, not mine. Biden can't speak. Biden can't debate. Biden can't put two sentences together. So I guess he's probably going to indict RFK Jr. But I'm glad that he's running. They will fight it out together. I do believe that RFK Jr. will take a lot of votes away from crooked Joe Biden. Kennedy responded to some of Trump's comments in a tweet on April 15, 2024. President Trump calls me an ultra-left radical. I'm so liberal that his emissaries asked me to be his VP. I respectfully declined the offer. I am against President Trump, and President Biden can't win. Judging by his new website, it looks like President Trump knows who actually can beat him. The post had 4 million views as of April 22nd, 2024. And I think that's a good place to stop it right here. Moving on to page 33. All right. Well, thank you all again for joining me here for this little brief reading through my book, taking notes for the future. We're editing. We're doing some live editing. All right, everybody. God bless you all. Remember, Jesus Christ loves you, and so do I. Until next time, this is episode number 3. We'll be back with number 4 very soon.